Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Spirit Collection of Thorne by J. Ann Thomas. This is a book coming out February 10th, 2025 from Alcove Press. It's a horror novel. I received this book from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. I'm sorry about how, I guess I don't have to apologize. I'm sorry about how sexy my shirt is. I got this shirt used for $6 and I was like, oh, I'll just throw it on for this video. I'm like, it is very low cut. Anyway, you can look at that if you want. A horror that is more creepy than scary. The real star of this novel is the atmosphere and characterization. It makes it kind of a gothic horror, I suppose, though on the whimsical side, like whimsical gothic, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, what is it about? At Thorne, a grand estate nestled in the Berkshires, 15 restless spirits roam, bound within the mansion's walls since the Gilded Age. Elegy Thorne bears the weight of her family's curse to preserve the mansion as it was in the 1890s, using ancient folk songs to keep the spirits secret and silent in order to avoid deadly consequences. When a mischievous child spirit wreaks havoc on the manor, the Thorne family calls upon their trusted preservationist to restore the mansion. He brings on his son Atticus, a vibrant man full of life and ideas of modernization, and Elegy is captivated by him, igniting a longing for freedom she's never dared to embrace. Torn between her desire to follow her heart and her duty to her family and its legacy, Elegy begins searching for a way to release the spirit collection back to the afterlife and set both herself and the ghosts free. If you enjoy gothic stories, but specifically Rebecca, you will like this. I mention Rebecca not because of the psychological horror, because it's not that by any means, but because of the style of the prose. One of the tenets of the main character, Elegy's lifestyle in the manor house, is that she has to dress and act in an Edwardian style, which also is reflected in how she talks. This is also reflected in the style in which the novel is written. While it's nothing like a Victorian domestic fiction, it is slower moving and more languid than most horror today. It has more in common with Wilkie Collins than Starling House, for example. But that doesn't mean that there isn't swearing and sex and violence. In truth, part of Elegy's character arc is learning to break free of the anachronism barriers her father has placed around her, and that includes a really spicy sex scene. Elegy herself is a likable character, as we all like a smart but sheltered young woman wishing to break free of the chains that bind her. She has been mentally abused by her father her entire life, with his intention being that she will be the caretaker of the house when he dies. The closer he gets to death, as he's quite ill, the more she subconsciously sees that she's not, does not have to abide by his rules. She can leave. The story is just as much about getting rid of ghosts as it is getting rid of an abusive parent. The side characters who aren't ghosts are fun. We don't get a ton on them, but they have a great dynamic, and the dialogue between characters really snaps. You can tell why they're kind of friends with Elegy. They find her kind of quirky and funny, but they also kind of like the mystery of the house. And you can tell why she's friends with them, because they are two fun characters who she kind of lives vicariously through. The love interest Atticus, to be honest, I found him a little bit bland, but I think that's probably what Elegy likes about him. The prose, as I mentioned, is really engaging, and while the plot is slow, it is such because there's a lot of detail provided. We know Elegy inside and out by the end of the novel, though more focus on the ghosts would have made the climax a lot stronger. While I loved the concept of the ghosts and how they were different from different time periods, and all of them had their particular quirks, I didn't feel like I knew them that much. Some of them were only mentioned in passing until nearly the end of the story. I kind of wish we'd seen kind of more engagement with the ghosts, or kind of the ghosts engaging. I also, while I was super into the novel while I was reading it, I had a lot of questions at the end. I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'll include a spoiler section kind of when I'm done my review here, in case you had questions too and wondered about the same things, or maybe you can answer these questions for me. Also tied to the ending, it felt like it wrapped up a little too easily, and in a way that felt a little bit cliche. The last 20% was nowhere near as strong as the rest of the book, I guess I'll say, or even the last 10%, because I really, really enjoyed it. The book is a little bit hefty, at least according to kind of my tablet. It seemed like it was long, but I really enjoyed reading it. I really looked forward to kind of jumping into it, every night before I went to sleep. The love story angle, though, was a little bit too rushed. I did like, as I said, the spicy scene. I liked that Atticus, was the main impetus for Elegy to start thinking about her life, going in a different direction. But I'm not a fan of insta-love, and this is 100% insta-love. They have a little bit of banter, but it's not the banter of an enemies to lovers lead up. It's just two people that clearly like one another. And while that's nice, it doesn't turn my crank. So So a little bit of so I guess certain aspects of the relationship felt a bit too like romance novel for me, and I didn't find there was enough like sexual tension. But there were aspects I enjoyed about it. I didn't find it corny or anything. As I said, it's kind of like an insta love thing. I just don't like insta love. If you don't mind it or don't care or like insta love, you'll probably really really like this. I'm just like, nah, it's not my like trope. In terms of being a horror book, the novel did have a few creepy parts, but it's not scary. And at times, I mentioned kind of earlier, it's a bit whimsical. Now, if you were looking to shit your pants, your undergarments will remain unsoiled, but this book is very fun, and I definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. I think you should read it if you like sprawling haunted mansions, a young woman breaking away from her demented father, and rich people parties in period dress. As promised, I'm going to talk about a few spoilers here about some questions I had about the book, things that kind of kept it from being like a 5-star read for me. It's solidly like a 3.75, I would say, if I had to give it a stars. But no, it was good. I enjoyed it. There are some things in the book that I don't believe were explained. Now, of course, you can correct me in the comments because it's possible I missed them. I was drinking a bit when I was reading it because I was reading it when I was in Mexico, but I wasn't drinking that much. I had my kids there, so I mean like a couple pina coladas. I don't mean I was like hammered. So now can ghosts touch people? Like, why can the ghosts touch people? If they can touch people, are they even ghosts? Like, there wasn't really kind of any rules around this. I didn't really understand kind of what kind of ghost rules this book was employing. And also, why did they come back as like partial skeletons and stuff? Was this like a choice the ghosts make? If not, like, wouldn't some of them have just been like bones? Why did they come back the way they do? And why was Gideon so malevolent? Like, what was his intentions? Like, why did he want to hurt Elegy? And what would that have accomplished for him in the end? If he killed her, for example, would they just be hanging around in this house? Like, what goals did the spirits have? Did they like haunting this house? Did they not want to be banished? Did they want to be banished? Like, we don't really get any of the motivations of the ghosts. And because the ghosts did seem to have consciousness, I don't understand kind of like what their deal was in that regard. Given the fact that Elegy was in fact a Thorne, how was she able to connect with the ghosts in the house if she wasn't a Thorne? Was it because of her magic stuff that kind of conveniently showed up? Like, I found that really kind of frustrating, the kind of Deus Ex Machina of that. Oh no, you're a witch now, you can help do this. And I was just like, oh, please. I mentioned this in regards to the love story in general terms, but the ending felt way too romance novel for me. It was a little bit eye-rolling. The happy ever after with the marriage and the kid and the perfect house and the life. I mean, I'm sure Elegy, she deserved to get what she wanted. But given she hadn't actually really kind of lived up to that point, because she's been trapped in this house for most of her life, it kind of felt a bit reductive as to what she would want. Like, it would have been more interesting to see her, like, traveling or, like, in school, like, deciding what she wants to do and, like, talking with Atticus about having the family one day. Like, I would have liked to see her kind of, rather than be, like, skip over kind of her learning who she really is and what she wants to do with life than just giving us, like, a Hollywood ending. I don't know. It didn't really work for me. Also, why would they get rid of the Thorne money? That made absolutely no sense to me. I get giving away the house for a museum. That makes total sense. But Elegy was like a millionaire. Use that money for good, Elegy. Help Atticus' company grow. Help other sustainability projects. Give money to Hugo. Turn some of the properties into affordable housing. It's absolute nonsense they would have just given up the money. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, yeah, so those were kind of my little issues with the book. They were minor things. Like, they were kind of things that came up after I read it. Like, while I was reading the book, I didn't have these questions. Not really. I kind of wondered, but I was like, oh, it'll answer the questions in the end. And then in the end, I was like, oh, I really did get confused about some stuff. So yeah, no, is this a debut? I don't know. If it is a debut, it was a solid debut. I really liked it. I thought it was fun. And, yeah, just because I have some critiques about it doesn't mean I thought it was bad. So if you loved this book, I'm not trying to tear it down. I just had some questions, and I think that's fair. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you again to the publisher for the e-arc.